This is what the Porter Improved Homestead tomatoes look like. Sorry, the Porter Improved Heirloom tomatoes look like. They're small, round, and beautiful. So the variety is so important for tomato. I mean, it is important, but I would say the most important thing to growing tomatoes in Dallas, Texas is not as much your variety as getting them in early. Hey you guys, from Bloom Where You're Planted, this is Dash. It is tomato time. I'm so excited. So the first thing I do when I'm getting out my garden, I'm gonna plant tomatoes, is I refer to my garden plan, because I've got those tomatoes and how many I want of each one and which bed I want it in. So I just refer to my plan. Get a plan. All right, and then first I'm going to show you how to plant a tomato, because there are some special things about tomatoes unlike other veggies. And then there goes Burton, fly by. And then I kind of have some advice for people that are in Dallas, Texas, or North Texas like I am. We kind of have a special, challenging tomato growing climate that's all of our own. So first of all, you're doing a tomato. I did these by seed, so I've got it all labeled. This is black vernissage tomato. What you're going to do is pinch off these lower branches, because you're going to plant your tomato plant deep. I'm going to plant it about that deep, and it's going to grow roots all along this stem. Oh, let's let the heroes get on their way, shall we? Okay, so after you've pinched those off, we're going to bury it deep, but there are a few things we're going to want to put in our hole. First of all, you're going to dig your hole a little deeper than you would most plants, because we're going to bury it deep. And kind of mix up the soil down there, and then these are the things I'm going to put in there. I want some calcium for my tomato to fight against blossom end rot. So I'm going to put some crushed up eggshells down in my hole, just a handful. Oops. And then I'm gonna want some fertilizer. Now I fertilize mine with mealworm frass. I raise mealworms and they make an awesome fertilizer for my garden, particularly because there's a lot of nitrogen in this mealworm frass, and then there is also phosphorus, and so that is a bloom maker, folks. So those are those tomatoes, those blooms in those tomatoes. So I'm also just going to take a handful of that, probably about 1/4 of a cup, and sprinkle that down there. All right, I'm just going to mix that up. Now there's one more thing I've always wanted to put into my tomatoes, and that is a fish head, you know, like the Pilgrims did. But I have been talking with my fisherman friend, and we keep saying we're going to do this every year. He's going to get me some fish heads to plant with my tomatoes, and we're going to see how that goes. But you know, I don't have that, but if you have that, throw it in there. Or some fish emulsion is a great thing, or even black gold, that vermicomposting wonderful fertilizer. That would be a good thing to throw in there too. All right, when you're done fertilizing, you've got your calcium in there, then in goes your tomato. And like I said, deep. We're going to plant that baby deep. Normally you wouldn't plant plants deeper than the roots, but tomatoes are different that way. All right, and then around it, I'm going to put a little ring of Epsom salt for magnesium. Now, I don't know if my soil is lacking magnesium, so one way to find that out would be to make a soil test, but I'm not going to soil test my beds every year. And so I'm just going to do a little circle around of magnesium to fight that disease and blossom end rot. About 2 pinches I put around there. All right, and then I want to share with you guys my motto about planting tomatoes. And if you can remember, it's easy. It's PPP. Plant early and be prepared to protect. Okay, now PPP is important because we still might get a freeze. Now, I looked up my last possible freeze, or my last average freeze in Dallas, Texas, and the computer told me, Farmer's Almanac told me that it was going to be around March 23rd. So you can say we've already passed that. But I'm an experienced gardener, and I know that I have planted all my tomatoes and I've lost them on a freeze on April 9th. So that was disappointing, and that's not ever going to happen to me again. So I would suggest that in your area, yes, look up your average last frost date, but then also get on social media and ask local gardeners in your very area and ask them, when do you treat the last frost date? Because I would tell everyone, for me, it's a little off. And that was I grew those tomatoes from seed, all heirloom tomatoes, so that was a hard and bitter disappointment. And I don't want that to happen to you. So plant early and then be prepared to protect. So I have buckets for all the tomatoes I'm going to plant. And if I know it's going to freeze that night, I can just slip this bucket over for the night and my tomato plant is protected. So I don't plant any of my tomatoes unless I have the ability to protect them from a freeze. That's not going to happen to me again. So another way you can protect them with little tomato plants like this is you can have like milk cartons and cut off the bottom of them. So you have the spout up at the top and you still have the lid on, save the lid, and then just nestle it over the tomato plant. So you're making just a little greenhouse for your tomatoes, as long as they're not too big. If they get bigger, then you're going to need a bucket or something. So yeah, definitely, I'm going to say that those high tunnels, the frost cloth, is not usually enough to protect tomatoes because they're very tender in a freeze. They really like it warm. They do not do well with a freeze. So, all right, so you've got our tomato planted, and you might be asking, where is the support? Well, this is the reason. I can't really put up my cattle panel, which I like to support tomatoes, or a tomato cage. I like the cattle panels. Hey, Guster, are you helping in the garden today? Say hi, everybody. Hey, you guys. All right, so the reason I don't have my cattle panel up is because, look, I couldn't really put my bucket in if I had my cattle panel going right here. And so until the last possible freeze, April 11th for me, I'm not going to put my cattle panels up. But as soon as that freeze date has passed, then I'm going to put my support up right away, and a strong support. All right, that's kind of all about tomatoes. Now, that's what I just shared with you really applies to Dallas, Texas, because in Dallas, Texas, and North Texas in general, we just have a spring just slams in and it gets pretty hot pretty quick. So if you don't have your tomato plants planted early, if you wait till say the middle of April or even May, when most people say, let's put those warm season crops in, well, then you're not going to get any tomatoes because the root system has to be established really well in that cool spring weather for you to get tomatoes to come to fruit. Because once those temperatures reach over 70, 75 degrees in the nighttime, your blooms are not going to set fruit after that point. After that point, the fat lady has sung and you don't have any more tomatoes and you're entering the hotter than hell period, which is the summer here. So that's why. Plant your tomatoes early. It's still going to freeze. You're going to know that, but just be prepared to protect them. So you might be asking, when am I planting my tomatoes? Well, usually I plant them in February, but I have been super busy, so I'm late. This is March 22nd, so I am late with planting, but yeah, usually I try to get them a lot earlier, so I have that time for that root system to get established. And then when the warm weather comes in, then the tomatoes can just be putting on that fruit during the coolness of the warm weather before the hot summer comes in. I hope that you get lots of those ripe, red, delicious orbs in your future. And that is kind of all about tomatoes. I'm going to plant the rest of these and just have fun out in the garden tonight. I'm running out of light, you guys, but I really want to get these planted before the rainstorm tomorrow, or tonight. Tonight after midnight, we're going to have some rain. So I want to get these planted before then. So I'm going to sign off. I know you guys have probably been there. Just want to get it done and don't have time, so rush out in the evening and get it done. So bye now.